Chapter 3896. Agio, did you miss me? The man's warm breath brushed against her ear, and his deep voice was husky and magnetic. It made her ears go numb, and half of her body went limp. Agio, do you want to do this? As soon as she heard his seductive voice, the tip of his tongue gently licked her earlobe. He gently bit her ear in his mouth and rubbed against it, making her tremble involuntarily. Or do you want to do this? His hand moved from her waist all the way up. Her slightly plump body felt even better to touch. Her smooth skin and soft body were so ecstatic that he couldn't bear to move his hand away from her body. Fengjiu couldn't help but snort. She didn't know why he was so passionate tonight, but she loved his passion and superb skills. As the two of them rubbed against each other, their clothes were taken off one by one. Xinyuan Mose sat on the bed. He reached out and lifted Fengjiu into his arms. He pressed one hand against the back of her head and leaned over to kiss her again. Due to the entanglement of the two figures on the bed curtains slowly fell down, covering the spring scenery on the bed. Through the bed curtains, the two figures on the bed could be faintly seen, as well as the soft moans of ecstasy that could be heard. The two children were sleeping soundly on the small bed. No one knew what they were dreaming of, but a smile appeared on their innocent sleeping faces, and a trace of saliva flowed from the corner of their mouths. It was late at night, and the master bedroom was filled with endless spring scenery. On the other side, Fan Lin was carrying a bowl of soup to Qin Xian's door. Qin Xian, are you asleep? When she heard the voice coming from outside, Qin Xian put on her clothes and got out of bed. She went to the outer room and opened the door. When she saw Fan Lin, she said, I just lay down. I couldn't sleep, so I was reading a medical book. When he heard this, Fan Lin smiled and said, I saw that there was still light in your room, so I brought you a bowl of soup. Come in quickly, Qin Xian said as she invited him into the room. Fan Lin hesitated for a moment. I better not go in. Drink this soup before you sleep. It's getting late and your body hasn't fully recovered. It's better to rest early. Upon hearing this, Qin Xian looked at him and reached out to take the soup from him. She said, Thank you. We're all on the same side. Don't be so polite. After saying that, Fan Lin seemed to have thought of something. His ears turned red, and he said uncomfortably, Then you go in. Rest early, I'll go back first. Without waiting for her reply, he hurriedly turned around and left. Qin Xian watched him leave with a bowl of soup in her hand. She was stunned for a moment when she saw his ears turn red when he turned around. Then she pursed her lips and smiled. She closed the door and brought the soup to the table. He opened the lid and saw that it was a pot of stewed soup. The smell of ginseng wafted out, as well as a few medicinal herbs that nourished the body. The night was slightly cold. However, when she looked at the pot of stewed soup, her heart felt warm and fuzzy. The next morning, Fengjiu woke up to the cries of her two children. However, as soon as she moved, she felt as though her entire body was falling apart. She was sore. She rubbed her waist and was about to get out of bed when a pair of bare arms hugged her. You've been tired all night. Let Ling Shuang come in and carry you. You can sleep for a while more, said Xinyuan Mose. His voice was slightly hoarse, which was very charming. Chapter 3897. Xinyuan Mose smiled. His hand was pushed away by her, so he propped his head up with one hand and leaned sideways on the bed. He watched her get up and put on her clothes, admiring the curves of her plump body. After Fengjiu picked up the child and fed him, she called out for Lung Shuang to prepare water for a bath. By the time the two of them left the room, it was already close to noon, and the child had fallen asleep after eating his fill. After a bath, the soreness in her body had subsided a little. Fengjiu stretched and walked out. Seeing that the weather was good, she wanted to walk around the city. So, she said to Xinyuan Mose, the weather is good. I want to go out for a walk and buy some things. Let's go together. Xinyuan Mose glanced at her and said, Let Lung Shuang and Lung Hua accompany you. I'll stay with the child so that they won't cry when they wake up. Seeing this, Fengjiu smiled. All right, I'll buy some pastries and other things back. As she spoke, she called for Lung Hua and Lung Shuang and gave Du Fan and the others some instructions. The three of them then walked out of the inn. Luo Yu watched as Feng Jiao and the others left, and couldn't help but say, Actually, I also want to go out with Master. Then go. We'll be here, Qi Kong said as he poured a cup of tea for Xianyuan Mose. But I also feel that it's rare to have so much free time. It's not bad to bask in the sun here. Luo Yu grinned and moved out a soft couch, lying down under a small tree in the courtyard. Seeing this, everyone looked at each other and smiled at the same time. Qi Kong, come and play a few games of chess, Xianyuan Mose said as he gestured for him to sit down. Yes, Qi Kong responded and sat down at the table, then took out a chessboard from his space. Du Fan held a fan in his hand and gently fanned himself. He came to the side and sat down, intending to watch the game from the side. Fan Lin put 2 chairs in front of the door of the master bedroom and said to Qin Xian, sit down. It's not that hot, and we can watch over little master and the others. If they wake up, we'll know immediately. Qin Xian glanced at him. Under the teasing gazes of the others, she slightly lowered her head and responded. With a bit of shyness, she went to sit beside Fan Lin. Bai Qing Chang went to the inn in front of them and brought some pastries and fresh fruits to the side for everyone to eat. She also poured a cup of tea for everyone and then waited by the side, watching them play chess. On the other side, Feng Jiao, dressed in red, led Leng Shuang and Leng Hua out of the inn. Walking on the street and looking at the bustling streets, she couldn't help but smile happily and relaxedly. Leng Shuang and Leng Hua followed beside her. They saw that their master was obviously in a good mood today and was full of energy. The two of them looked at each other, pursed their lips, and smiled, and quietly followed behind her. This town doesn't look big, but there are many things on the street, Feng Jiao said as she picked up a rattle drum from a stall and shook it, making a crisp sound. She looked back at the two of them and asked, Look at this. What do you think of buying this to play with? Leng Hua looked at the rattle drum and felt that the workmanship was a bit rough. He said, Master, I saw a shop selling children's toys over there. Why don't we go there and have a look? Oh, is there? Feng Jiao said in surprise and looked in the direction he pointed. Yes, it's over there. It's not far from here. Leng Hua pointed a shop in front of them. However, at this moment, an arrogant shout came at them. Chapter 3898. A man shouted arrogantly. He strode over and reached out to break Leng Hua's hand. Leng Hua glanced at the man and saw that there were 7 or 8 people behind him. They were all burly and had fierce expressions on their faces. When he saw that the man was about to break his hand, he dodged the man's outstretched hand and retracted his own. He said gently, I wasn't pointing at you. No. Do you think I'm blind? I was collecting money over there when I saw you pointing at me. Tell me, what do you want? Huh? He puffed out his muscular chest and walked forward, wanting to use his chest to hit Leng Hua. But who would have thought that when he took a step forward, his chest couldn't even move Leng Hua in the slightest. This made him feel a little embarrassed. Especially after trying a few times, he still felt that the other party couldn't even shake him. He became angry from embarrassment. He raised his fist and swung it heavily at Leng Hua's gentle face. You're asking for it. The man shouted angrily and swung his fist. However, in the next moment, the fist didn't land on Leng Hua's body. Instead, Leng Hua reached out and grabbed it. Leng Hua twisted his body sideways and kicked the man's knee with the tip of his foot. The man immediately knelt down. Hiss! The man sucked in a breath of cold air. One of his hands was twisted behind his back. His knee was numb, and he couldn't even stand up. His face was red. He shouted at the 7 or 8 people standing at the side, stunned. What are you still looking at? Hurry up and attack. Kid, let go of her boss. The 7 or 8 people shouted. They reached for their waists and pulled out their swords to slash at Leng Hua. Leng Hua pulled the man kneeling on the ground up to block them. The man was so scared that his face turned pale. He cried out in alarm, Watch out! Watch out! Don't cut me! He struggled to free his hand, but as he struggled, a cracking sound came from his bones. The pain made him break out in a cold sweat. He knew in his heart that his hand had been broken. The blade couldn't be retracted, so it could only slash to the side. When the wind swept past, the man who was being held by Lung Hua was so shocked that his legs went soft. He gritted his teeth and shouted at the man who was wielding the blade, "God damn it! Do you want to kill me or save me? Quickly put away the knife and use your fists." However, at this moment, Lung Hua grabbed the man with one hand and rushed forward. In a few moves, he beat the man who pounced with his fists to the ground. Looking at the bruised and swollen man, he picked up the one next to him and asked, "Do you still want to fight?" "No, no more fighting, no more fighting." The man quickly shook his head and said. Hearing that, Lung Hua pushed him and said, "Get lost. Don't let me see you again." As soon as the man regained his freedom, he hissed and clutched his injured arm. He glanced at Lung Hua, who had turned around to leave, and a ruthless look flashed across his eyes. In the next moment, he flicked his sleeve, and two hidden weapons shot out without warning. Whoosh! Lung Hua originally wanted to let them go and didn't want to kill them. However, when he turned around, the murderous aura behind him made him turn back. At the same time, he flicked his sleeve and a wave of spiritual energy shot out, sending the two hidden weapons back. Whoosh whoosh! The two hidden weapons shot back at the man. The man didn't expect the hidden weapons to be shot back. He couldn't dodge in time, and the two hidden weapons pierced his chest. Ah! Chapter 3899. Seeing the man fall to the ground, his body convulsing as he spat out black blood. His lips and face quickly turned a dark purple color. The surrounding people cried out in alarm. Ah! Murder! Murder! The people at the stall cried out in alarm and avoided the scene. When the 7 or 8 men who got up from the ground saw their big brother fall to the ground and spit out black blood, their faces turned pale with fright. The two braver men went forward to help him up. "Big brother, big brother." They searched his body and shouted, "Where's the antidote? Where's the antidote? Where is it?" There's no antidote." Cough, cough. "Help! Help me take revenge." As he spoke, he couldn't catch his breath and breathe his last. Even in death, his eyes were wide open. "Big brother." The two men who were supporting Lung Hua shouted. They looked at Lung Hua in horror as they dragged Lung Hua's body back. They kept saying, "You're dead. You're dead. You actually killed our big brother. You're dead." Feng Jiao and Lung Hua stood to the side. When they saw the people of the stalls retreat and look at Lung Hua with pity, their hearts moved. They walked forward and asked an old woman, "Old madam, who is that dead person?" The old woman saw that Feng Jiao was beautiful in red, and her tone was gentle and kind. She whispered, "That's the local tyrant of this city. He's been collecting protection fees in the city because his brother-in-law is the city lord." As she spoke, the old woman said, "Madam, you should leave quickly. If the city lord comes, you won't be able to leave." The three of them had outstanding appearances and temperaments. When the three of them walked together, the people on the street were looking at them. They knew that they were together. Now that the man had killed the local tyrant, he was probably in trouble. Hearing this, Feng Jiao smiled. "Thank you, but it's okay." It was indeed okay. Even if the city lord was here, it wouldn't matter if they killed him, not to mention that he was just a relative of the city lord. They were strong, but they were never the type to bully the weak. However, since they had offended them, they couldn't blame anyone else. Because someone had died here, the city guards in the city quickly arrived. A group of more than 20 people quickly surrounded the area. When a man in the lead saw the dead person on the ground, his eyes narrowed. He immediately looked around and shouted, "Who killed him?" "Captain, he's the one who killed him. He killed my big brother." The two men who were supporting the corpse said as they pointed at Lung Hua, who was still standing there. "Capture him." The guard captain waved his hand and shouted. Just as the guards were about to step forward, a gentle voice rang out. "Why are you arresting him?" Feng Jiao glanced at the guard captain and slowly walked up to Lung Hua's side. He looked at them and said, "Are you trying to arrest me without any reason? On what basis?" "Who are you?" the guard captain shouted. When he saw Feng Jiao's face, a look of surprise flashed across his eyes. His tone also softened a little. "It's none of your business. Don't get involved. Move aside. He's one of my men," Feng Jiao said indifferently. His gaze landed on the corpse on the ground. He said, "This person deserved to die." The hidden weapon was his own, and he was the one who poisoned himself. Now that he's dead, who can he blame? Chapter 3900. Hearing Fengjiu's words, the guard captain's face darkened. "Do you know that he is our city lord's brother-in-law? Your people killed him. Do you think you can just let it go like this?" Fengjiu chuckled. "We were just acting in self-defense. Moreover, we haven't even pursued the matter of him trying to kill us. If we pursue the matter, even your city lord will be implicated." Hearing this, the guard captain's eyes flashed. He looked at Fengjiu's group and asked, "You're not from here?" "That's right, we just happened to pass by and decided to rest here," Fengjiu said casually. Hearing this, the guard captain's face lit up. "No wonder you dare to say such big words. We must bring this person back to report on our mission. As for the two of you, you should leave quickly. If our city lord comes here, you won't be able to leave even if you want to." With the beauty of these two women, if their city lord came, it would be difficult for them to escape the clutches of the city lord. Others might not know, but he knew that there were many beautiful women secretly kidnapped in the city lord's mansion. If those women could catch the city lord's eye, there was no need to mention these two women. "The city lord is here," someone shouted from behind. Fengjiu and the others looked over and saw a group of people quickly jogging over. In the middle of the group, a man of about 40 years old followed quickly. The first thing he saw was not the dead brother-in-law on the ground, but the dazzling red-clothed Fengjiu. Seeing such a beauty, a trace of amazement flashed across his eyes. Light blossomed in his eyes as he stared at her, as if she was his prey. Without saying a word, he shouted in a deep voice, "Capture all of them!" Seeing the guards rushing over, Lung Shuang coldly shouted, "Impudent!" As soon as the voice fell, a powerful pressure spread out. The powerful pressure immediately stopped the guards in their tracks. Their faces were pale as they retreated. They vaguely felt as if a mountain was pressing down on them, making them unable to stand up. The city lord stared at Fengjiu and praised in his heart. How could there be such a beautiful woman? However, at this moment, he heard the cold shout and felt a terrifying pressure. That pressure was like an ice needle piercing into his body, causing him to shiver. He suddenly came back to his senses and looked at the woman in black. You. He stared at Lung Shuang in shock, unable to believe that such a powerful pressure had come from the woman in black. Under that pressure, the blood in his body churned, but his blood was piercingly cold. The pressure grew stronger and heavier, causing his knees to bend involuntarily under the pressure. With a plop, he knelt down and spat out a mouthful of blood. "City Lord." Everyone was shocked and looked at the city lord who was kneeling on his knees. As for the surrounding commoners, they did not approach and the pressure did not fall on them. Naturally, they did not know why the city lord suddenly became like this. However, they vaguely felt that it had something to do with the woman in black who shouted. When the guard captain saw this scene, he was so shocked that he was speechless. He only felt that the pressure had not dissipated and was still lingering in the air. Most of it landed on the city lord's body. Chapter 3901. Fengjiu and the others looked in the direction of the voice and saw a monk in a beige robe standing in the crowd with his palms clasped together. He was very conspicuous. Looking at the monk, Fengjiu's eyes flickered. This was the first time she saw a monk here, and he looked no different from the monk she had seen in her previous life. No, there was something different. There was a Buddha's light on this monk. Even if it was faint, it was still the Buddha's light. As far as she knew, most of the Buddhas and monks on this continent were from the Million Buddhas sect. Thinking of this, she raised her hand and motioned for Lung Shuang to step back. "Master, are you from the Million Buddhas sect?" she asked directly, her eyes falling on the monk. Since he could remove the pressure of Lung Shuang with a flick of his hand, his strength and cultivation were not a problem. It was reasonable to call him a master. There was a little monk behind the monk. When he heard Fengjiu's words, he could not help but poke his head out from behind and look at Fengjiu curiously. When a monk in front heard Fengjiu's words, he just smiled and said, "Benefactress, you have sharp eyes." Fengjiu smiled and said slowly, "Today, I will give you face and not kill this person, but..." She paused, and a cold light suddenly shot out from her fingers and cut off the arm of the city lord kneeling on the ground like a sharp blade. Hiss! With a shrill scream. The broken arm rolled on the ground. Blood splashed out instantly and spilled all over the ground. It was a shocking sight. No one had expected this sudden scene. Even the monk was slightly stunned. It seemed that he did not expect her to attack so suddenly and so quickly that he had no time to stop her. You can avoid death, but you can't escape punishment. Fengjiu spoke unhurriedly. Her clear eyes did not look at the wailing city lord who had his arm chopped off. Instead, she looked at the monk. The monk put his hands together, lowered his head slightly, and murmured, "Ba, my name is Fengjiu. How should I address you, Grandmaster?" The monk looked at Fengjiu, who was dressed in red, with a faint smile on his beautiful face. His expression was calm and indifferent, as if he did not see the corpse on the ground and the city lord who was bleeding profusely with a severed arm. Seeing her like this, he chanted Ba in his heart, and then slowly said, "Benefactress, this poor monk's dharma name is Ijia. Master Ijia, we'll meet again," Fengjiu said with a smile. Then, he turned and left with Leng Hua and Leng Shuang. Hearing those words, the monk fell into deep thought. He watched as the three of them disappeared at the end of the street. He had a premonition that they would meet again. The little monk popped his head out from behind and asked curiously, "Master, why is this female benefactor so powerful?" "She is very human," the monk said slowly. The monk spoke softly as he looked at the man on the ground. He then clasped his hands together and said, Ba, benefactor, your sins are too heavy. If you don't do good deeds, your life will be in danger in the future. Benefactor, take care of yourself." With that, the monk led the little monk past the person on the ground and left. Chapter 3902. The city guards hurriedly sent the governor for medical treatment, and the head guard ordered people to clean up the ground. As they left, the people on the street could not help but look at each other. No one could figure out what was going on. They had thought that the beautiful woman in red and her two companions would suffer, but who knew that the governor's arm was cut off, and the three people did not dare to do anything to them. The peddlers moved their stalls away and began to sell things again. The smell of blood on the street gradually dissipated, as if the previous scene had never happened. On the other side, Fengjiu, Leng Hua, and Leng Shuang came to another street and entered a shop to buy some children's toys. Leng Hua asked in confusion, "Master, since that man is from the Million Buddhist sect, why didn't you ask him?" He was a little puzzled. He didn't understand why his master only mentioned the monk's name and didn't ask him about it, since he knew that the monk was from the Million Buddhist sect. Even if the other party did not tell him everything, he could probably find out whether the Golden Lotus was really in the Million Buddhist sect or not. Hearing Leng Hua's words, Fengjiu smiled and played with a small toy in her hand. She said, "It doesn't matter whether I ask him or not. Anyway, I have to go to the Million Buddhist sect, the holy land of Buddhism. What if they don't let you in?" Leng Hua asked again. After all, those were monks, and women were generally not allowed to enter their sect. Fengjiu smiled and said slowly, "If I want to go in, who can stop me?" She played with the small rattle drum in her hand and said to Leng Shuang, "Go to pay the bill." "Yes." Leng Shuang responded and went to the front counter to pay the bill. Fengjiu walked out and stood on the street to look around. When Leng Shuang came out, she said to them, "There's a pastry shop over there. Let's buy some and take it back." "Okay." The two of them answered and accompanied her to the pastry shop. After buying some pastries, Fengjiu also bought some soy sauce meat. They strolled around the city for a while before returning to the inn. "We're back." Fengjiu entered the inn's backyard and saw Xianyuan Mose holding Mu Chun and feeding him something. Next to him was a crib with little Yu lying inside. She stepped forward and asked, "Is the child hungry?" When Xianyuan Mo saw that she had returned, he said, "They woke up for a while, but they couldn't stop crying, so I asked Xinshang to make some porridge for them. Look, they've already eaten half a bowl." Fengjiu smiled and saw Mu Chun eating with his little mouth and licking with his little tongue. He couldn't help but scratch his nose. "Son, do you miss your mother?" The little fellow grinned and stretched out his arms. wanting Feng Jiu to hold him. Seeing this, Feng Jiu took a handkerchief from the side and wiped the corners of his mouth. She then took him and asked, "Has you eaten?" "Yes," Xin Yuan Mo said, and looked at his daughter in the crib. His eyes were gentle as he said, "Feed her first. She'll only be obedient after she eats." Seeing him playing with his daughter, she said to Leng Hua, "Go and cut the soy sauce meat we just bought and send wine to everyone." "Yes," Leng Hua responded and turned to leave. Chapter 3903. Hearing this, Xin Yuan Mose looked at her and asked, "A monk?" Feng Jiu smiled and said, "Yes, a monk named Ijia. He is quite powerful." "Are you going to the Million Buddhist sect alone?" Xin Yuan Mose asked. He looked at her and said, "Do you need me to accompany you?" "No, I can go by myself," she said with a smile. "Master, here the sauce meat. I asked the kitchen of the inn to cook a few dishes. You eat these first, and the rest will be sent later." Leng Hua came forward with the sauce meat and put on the table. Looking at them holding the two children, he said, "Master, why don't I send the two little masters to their rooms?" "Okay." Feng Jiu agreed and asked him to send the two children back to their rooms. At the dinner table, Feng Jiu told Xin Yuan Mose about what happened outside today. They talked about the Million Buddhist sect again. It was not until late at night that they went back to their rooms to rest. 2 days later, when they were in the carriage slowly heading in the direction of the Million Buddhist sect, both Feng Jiu and Qin Xian looked ruddier than before after 2 days of diet and recuperation. After another half a month, the carriage was slowly moving on the mountain road. Leng Hua, who was driving the carriage in front, saw two figures in front and said to Feng Jiu, "Master, there are two monks on both sides. They seem to be the two people we met that day." "Oh." Feng Jiu raised her eyebrows and lifted the curtain to look forward. She saw a little monk sitting in the shade of a tree by the roadside, drinking water and eating dry food. Next to him was a big monk sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed. She looked at them and found that they were indeed the monk named Ijia and his disciple she met half a month ago. "Pull over," Feng Jiu said and put down the curtain. The big monk and the little monk were resting by the side of the road. When the little monk heard the sound of a horse carriage, he raised his head to take a look. When he saw a group of people slowly walking towards them, the little monk tugged on his master's sleeve and whispered, "Master, there's a horse carriage coming towards us." Monk Ijia didn't even open his eyes and said, "The road is facing the sky. He is coming towards us, but not necessarily for us." "But," the little monk hesitated and looked at the two familiar people and said, "The driver is one of the 3 benefactors that day, and beside him is the female benefactor." Hearing this, Monk Ijia slowly opened his eyes. As expected, he saw the carriage coming towards them. It got closer and closer until it stopped in front of them. A pair of slender, fair hands lifted the curtain of the carriage, revealing a beautiful face. "Grandmaster Ijia, we meet again." Feng Jiu smiled and greeted him from the carriage. "Amitba, female benefactor." The big monk put his hands together and nodded slightly, but his gaze fell on the top of the carriage. He saw that the top of the carriage was surrounded by purple clouds and auspicious clouds. He couldn't help but look into the carriage, but he didn't see anything. "I didn't expect to meet you again after half a month. It seems that we are really fated." Feng Jiu chuckled. She didn't mind that the monk was looking at the carriage with a probing gaze. The big monk didn't know what she wanted to do, so after hearing her words, he didn't say anything and only lowered his eyes slightly. Chapter 3904. Looking at the carriage slowly leaving, the little monk touched his smooth head and asked doubtfully, "Master, why did the benefactress say that we would meet again?" The monk looked in the direction of the carriage and said, "We will meet again if fate wills it." After another half a month, Feng Jiu and the others arrived at the destination town. As soon as they entered the city, Du Fan and the others found a courtyard to stay in. It took only half a day to prepare all the things needed in the courtyard. After cleaning, Du Fan said to Qin Xian, "I'll go to the restaurant to pick up the master and the others." Then he went out first. In a restaurant in the city, Because it was inconvenient for Xianyuan Mose to go upstairs, Fengjiu chose a place near the window on the first floor to rest. Looking at the bustling street outside, Fengjiu held his chin with one hand and said, "I thought it was just a small town in this remote place. I didn't expect that although this city is not as big as the Flying Immortal City, it is bigger than the town where we came to rest." Xianyuan Mose looked at the street outside and occasionally saw monks passing by. He said, "It seems that this place is really close to the Million Buddhist sect. The Million Buddhist sect is strange. It is a hidden sect. There is very little news about them in other places, but here, monks can be seen everywhere." Fengjiu said, his eyes falling on the monks. Although they saw many monks, none of them was as powerful as the monk called Ijia they met on the road. Moreover, there was no Buddha's light on these monks. Obviously, they were just some unknown people. They were watching the pedestrians in the restaurant, and the people in the restaurant were watching them. There was no other reason. It was simply because their appearances and bearings were extremely outstanding, so it was difficult to not notice them, even if one wanted to. However, they merely glanced at them out of curiosity. After all, they could tell that these people were not ordinary people at first glance, so they naturally would not seek trouble for themselves. Why do I feel that there are so many more monks these days? Didn't they say that the monks of the Million Buddhist sect are not allowed to go up the mountain without permission? At another window on the first floor of the restaurant, he looked at the monks walking outside and felt a little strange. When the other man heard that, he said, "Don't you know? 3 months ago, the Million Buddhist sect suddenly recalled all the monks and disciples from all over the country. These people probably came back from other places. 3 months ago, all the monks and disciples were summoned back? Why was that? What happened to the Million Buddhist sect?" Another person asked in surprise. "I don't know. The internal information of the Million Buddhist sect is not something we can know. But, judging from the situation, I guess something has happened." Fengjiu and Xianyuan Mose looked at each other as they listened to the guest's whispers. He thought to himself, 3 months ago, he summoned all the monks and disciples from all over the world? What exactly had happened? Wap, the child's cries interrupted her thoughts. She looked at Mu Chun, who was in by Qingqing's arms, and asked, "Why are you crying? Come on, let me hold you." Bai Qingqing handed the child forward. But unexpectedly, as soon as Mu Chun cried, Lung Hua, who was holding Mu Yu, also burst into tears. For a moment, the cries of the two children sounded on the first floor of the restaurant, attracting the attention of the guests on the first floor. Chapter 3905. Bai Qingqing said, "Huilang went out to look for goat milk. He should be back soon." These days, the masters were helping the two children to stop drinking milk. Usually, other than some porridge and water, they mostly drank goat milk. Therefore, when they arrived here, besides Qin Xen, who went to Du Fan, and Fan Lin, who went to look for a room, Huilang also went to the market to look for goat milk. As they were talking, they heard Lung Hua say with a smile, "Huilang is back." Hearing this, Xianyuan Mose and Fengjiu looked out and saw Huilang walking on the street with a goat in his hand. The goat seemed to be unwilling to walk and stopped after a few steps. Huilang walked and pulled the goat, causing people on the street to look askance. Huilang is smart this time. He knows to bring a goat back. Fengjiu couldn't help but chuckle. He watched as he pulled the goat to the outside of the restaurant, tied it outside, and walked in. "Master, madam, I'm back." Huilang grinned and took out a jar of goat milk from his space and handed it to Bai Qingqing. "Here, take it to the kitchen of the restaurant and let them heat it up. Add a little salt." Bai Qingqing smiled and took it. "Okay." She took the jar of goat milk and asked the waiter to lead the way to the kitchen. "Why are the little masters crying? Are you all hungry?" Huilang looked at the two crying children with some heartache. He wanted to reach out and hug them, but he saw that his master and madam were holding them. He could only go to the front and play with the two children. Come. Look at what this is." He took out a puppet and pressed it on the puppet. The puppet stuck out its tongue. The two children looked at the puppet in a daze. Who knew that the puppet would suddenly stick out its tongue? The two children were so scared that they cried again. This time, they cried even louder than before. Huilang touched his nose awkwardly. "Are they scared?" He quickly took back the toy. He thought it was quite interesting. He had just bought it by the roadside on the way back. Who knew that the two children would not like it? Fengjiu gently coaxed the children while smiling. They're still young. They don't know how to play this. Xianyuan Mose glanced at Hui Lang and said, "Keep these strange things to yourself. Don't bring them to them." "Yes," Hui Lang replied somewhat embarrassedly. He did not expect to scare the two children. Not long after, Bai Qingsheng came over with the freshly boiled goat milk. She scooped out 2 small bowls and placed them on the table. "It's still a little hot. Be careful not to burn yourself." Fengjiu drank a mouthful first. After tasting the taste, he scooped a small spoonful and fed it to Mu Chun. Seeing that Xianyuan Mose was holding little Yu Fengjiu said, "Mose, let Qingsheng feed little Yu Xianyuan Mose paused for a moment before motioning Qingsheng to sit down. Then, he passed the child in his arms to her. Bai Qingsheng took the child and carefully scooped up the goat milk to feed him. After they fed the two children a small bowl of goat milk, they saw Du Fan walking over. "It seems that the courtyard is ready," Leng Hua said. He smiled at them and said, "I'll go and pay the bill first." As soon as he finished speaking, he walked to the counter. Du Fan entered the restaurant and walked towards them. "Ya, my lord, master, the courtyard is ready. You can go now." Chapter 3906. 2 days later, in the early morning of the house, Fengjiu kissed the two sleeping children and said to Xianyuan Mose, "Then I'm leaving. Take care of yourself when I'm not here. Don't make me worry." Xianyuan Mose held her hand and said, "Take care of yourself. Take Du Fan or Leng Hua with you. If anything happens, we can take care of each other." "Okay," she responded and leaned forward to kiss his lips. Xianyuan Mose reached out to hold her and deepen the kiss. After a while, he let go of her and said, "Go. We'll wait for you to come back." "Okay." She glanced at the two children again and sighed softly in her heart. The children have been by my side since they were born. Now they are reluctant to go out. She withdrew her gaze and turned out of the room. When she came outside, she told them to take good care of Xianyuan Mose and the two children. Then she called Leng Hua and left with them. The Million Buddhist sect was still a long way from here. Therefore, Fengjiu and Leng Hua, who were out of the city, went directly by flying swords. Standing on the flying sword, they saw some monks walking up the mountain step by step on the rugged mountain path. Perhaps they sensed them. Many of them raised their heads to take a look. When they came to the boundary of the Million Buddhist sect by flying swords, a voice came from the sky. At the same time, Fengjiu also noticed the aura of the boundary in the air. "Ahead is the boundary of the Million Buddhist sect. Please don't cross it." Fengjiu descended from the air on the flying sword. After landing on the ground, she put away the flying sword under her feet. She looked up and saw that the road up the mountain was full of stairs. The stairs extended upward and disappeared into the depths of the forest. At the top, she could faintly see the Buddhist palace. "Amitabha, this is an important place of Buddhism. Please stop." In the forest, two monks in beige robes came out, putting their palms together. Fengjiu smiled and raised her eyebrows slightly. She said, "Shouldn't Buddhists treat all 6 roots equally? How is it that in your eyes, there's still the word female benefactor?" "Amitabha." The two of them were young, but they were calm. After hearing her words, they didn't say anything and just stood there quietly. However, at this moment, Fengjiu's figure moved. The red figure instantly rushed forward and sealed the two's acupuncture points. Because her speed was too fast, the two monks maintained their previous posture and did not move. They did not even have the time to raise their eyes before they were frozen in place. Fengjiu stretched out her hand and caught a leaf that was drifting down. She channeled her strength and shot it to the side. The leaf that had no height at all sank into the tree trunk. She smiled and put her palms together. "Young masters, sorry to offend you." The two monks couldn't even respond, let alone respond. They could only stand there quietly with their eyes down. Fengjiu walked up the mountain. Leng Hua, who was behind, saw this and hurriedly followed. However, he saw that his master's footsteps seemed slow, but in fact, it was light and fast. He followed behind and had to quicken his pace to keep up. When they arrived at the top, it was already noon. The sun shone down from the sky and fell on the Buddha's palace. Looking up from a distance, they saw that it was bathed in the Buddha's light. Chapter 39:07. Amaba, benefactress. Behind Feng Jiao and the others, a Buddhist voice sounded. It wasn't an unfamiliar voice, causing Feng Jiao to raise her eyebrows slightly. She turned around and saw the monk slowly walking over with the little monk. "Master Ijia, how have you been?" Feng Jiao smiled. He was not surprised to see him here. The monk walked forward slowly and came to Feng Jiao. He asked, "Benefactress, why have you come all the way west?" "I want to see the immortal Buddha of the myriad Buddhas sect," she said slowly. Looking at the monk in front of her, she said, "Since Master Ijia knows that I have come all the way here, you won't refuse me, right?" "Amaba, I don't dare." He lowered his head slightly and put his palms together. He said, "Benefactress, come in with me. I'll introduce you to the immortal Buddha." As he said that, he walked out. Feng Jiao watched him walk forward. He came to the door and knocked on the door ring. Not long after, the door slowly opened. He turned around and said to Feng Jiao, "Benefactress, please." The little monk followed beside her. Seeing that his master personally led the way for her and even asked her to go first, he could not help but be surprised. He looked at the beautiful woman curiously, wondering who she was. Why did his master treat her so politely? Moreover, ordinary women were not allowed to enter Buddhism. Why did he make an exception for her? He was curious, but he did not dare to ask. He could only stand quietly behind his master and watch the woman in red lead the man into Buddhism. After they entered, the little monk asked in a low voice, "Master, did they hit the acupoints of the two senior brothers at the foot of the mountain to break into the mountain? Why did you invite them into Buddhism?" The monk looked back at him and did not say much. He just said, "You can go now." In other words, he did not want him to follow them. "Yes," the little monk replied and did not follow them. Martial Granduncle. Martial Granduncle. The monks led Feng Jiao and the others forward. Along the way, the monks they met slowly put their palms together and called out to them. After they walked past, they raised their heads and looked at the beautiful woman in red in astonishment. "That's a woman? Why did Martial Granduncle bring a woman back?" A young monk asked curiously. "Martial Granduncle has his own reasons for doing things. There's no need for us to guess blindly here. Let's go," the older monk said, indicating for everyone to disperse. Feng Jiao walked all the way and saw that there weren't many monks here. He couldn't help but think of some things about the Thousand Buddhist sect. It was said that there were only a few hundred disciples here, and they didn't take in disciples easily. Sometimes they would only take in 1 or 2 disciples a year. Now that he looked at the Buddhist sect again, there were indeed not as many disciples as other sections. He knew that the rumors outside were true. However, as she walked in here, she felt that the aura here was very peaceful, so much so that her state of mind calmed down. She followed the monk all the way. When they came to a hall, she looked up and saw a big golden Buddha above the hall. In the center of the hall, several monks were sitting there with their eyes closed, meditating. "Benefactress, please wait here," the monk said to Feng Jiao, and then stepped into the hall. Lung Hua looked ahead and whispered, "Master, the holy light of Buddhism is so dazzling that he did not dare to look directly at it." Chapter 39:08. After a while, Monk Ijie came out and said to Feng Jiao, "Benefactress, please come in." Feng Jiao nodded and walked in, followed by Lung Hua. They saw that the monks, who had been sitting cross-legged in cultivation, were sitting on 2 sides. However, they were not sitting on chairs because there were no chairs in the hall. Instead, they were sitting on futons. In addition to the 8 old monks sitting on the left and right, there was also an old monk with long eyebrows sitting in the middle. Opposite the old monk, there were 2 futons in front of the entrance of the hall. Seeing this, Feng Jiao stepped forward. First, she put her palms together and bowed to them. Then, she sat down cross-legged. Lung Hua sat behind Feng Jiao according to the etiquette, while Monk Ijie sat next to the old monk with long eyebrows. At this time, the monks in the hall were looking at Fengjiu and secretly sizing her up. The more they looked at her, the more surprised they were. It seemed that they did not expect such a person to exist. This is immortal Buddha Ichan of our myriad Buddhas sect, Monk Ijia said as he introduced the two. Then he said to Monk Baimei, "This female patron's name is Fengjiu." Monk Waimei looked kindly at Fengjiu with a smile on his face and said, "Ba, we have a distinguished guest coming from afar. Please forgive us if we have not received you well." "I am sorry for disturbing your cultivation," Fengjiu said with a smile. "Benefactress, may I know why you are here?" Monk Waimei looked kindly at Fengjiu and asked. Fengjiu paused for a moment. Seeing that he was straightforward, she said, "To tell you the truth, I am here for the ancient golden lotus." Hearing this, the other monks in the hall looked at Fengjiu with a trace of surprise in their eyes. She was here for the ancient golden lotus? She was here for the ancient golden lotus? How would the immortal Buddha answer? Immediately, the monks looked at the white-browed monk, wondering how he would answer this question. When Bai Mei heard Fengjiu's words, his expression remained the same. He smiled and asked slowly, "Benefactor, do you want the ancient golden lotus to subdue the ancient black lotus?" Hearing this, it was Fengjiu's turn to be surprised. She did not expect the people of the Million Buddhist sect to know about it. She nodded and said, "Yes, the teacher of a friend of mine, Tianji Lauren, once asked me to collect those ancient lotus seeds. But these lotus seeds were scattered all over the heavenly regions and were extremely difficult to find. I searched through several heavenly regions and learned that the ancient golden lotus was in the Million Buddhist sect. Therefore, I came here to ask for it." She paused and continued, "The ancient golden lotus has the power to purify evil. If we can obtain it, we should be able to subdue the ancient black lotus." The 8 monks sitting on the left and right were confused. Why did it feel like they didn't understand what they were saying? Why were they talking about the ancient black lotus? Did immortal Buddha Ichan know where this woman named Fengjiu came from? And why did she want a golden lotus? Monk Waimei looked at Fengjiu with a smile and said slowly, "It is not impossible to give the ancient golden lotus to you, but you need to do 2 things for the Million Buddhist sect. Immortal Buddha. Immortal Buddha. No, immortal Buddha." Chapter 3909. I know what I'm doing. White Eyebrows raised his hand to signal for them to stop talking. Fengjiu looked at him and asked, "What do you want me to do for you?" "Haha, there's no rush. Let's talk about it after you get the golden lotus," White Eyebrows said. Master Yi Jia sat quietly at the side with his palms pressed together as he looked at Fengjiu. He didn't show any surprise at White Eyebrows' words, as if he already knew it would be like this. "Benefactor, raise your head and look at the Buddha's eyes," White Eyebrows said with a kind expression. Fengjiu lifted her head and looked at the Buddha in the hall. When her clear eyes met the Buddha's eyes, her heart trembled. It was as if a scene of the world flashed before her eyes. "The ancient golden lotus is inside there. Benefactor, go and look for it," White Eyebrows said. He raised his hand and a ray of light flashed. Fengjiu, who was sitting cross-legged on the praying mat, disappeared from the hall. "Master?" Lung Hua was slightly stunned. He looked around and couldn't help but look up at the Buddha's eyes. However, he only felt a blur in front of his eyes, and he fainted. Looking at the fainted Lung Hua, White Eyebrows said to the monks on his left and right, "Send this benefactor to rest." "Yes." The 8 monks on both sides responded. They suppressed the shock in their hearts and got up to bring Lung Hua out, handing him over to his disciples to settle down. After they left, Master Ijia asked, "Sacred Buddha, are you planning to give the ancient golden lotus to that female benefactor?" White Eyebrows smiled and said, "You and I both know that she's not an ordinary person. Buddha is merciful. If she really needs the sacred item of Buddha, there's no harm in giving it to her." He stopped laughing and put his palms together as he murmured, Ba, I just don't know if she can get the ancient golden lotus." Master Ijia also murmured softly. He lowered his eyes with his palms together. At the same time, Feng felt his world turn upside down. The scene in front of him changed, and when he calmed down, he found himself in a place filled with blood. She looked around and saw that she was surrounded by a forest. There were no corpses on the ground, but there was blood on the ground. The smell of blood filled the air, and there were faint cries and screams coming from the forest. "Give me back my life! Give me back my life! Feng Jiu, come down and accompany us." The sound was like the howling of ghosts and wolves, echoing in her ears. She frowned and looked, only to see that the scene in front of her changed again. The original forest became pitch black, and gusts of chilly wind whistled from the forest, making one's hair stand on end. Feng Jiu's brows furrowed as he watched the scene before him change. Where's this place? Why was she here? Why would there be such a bloody place in Buddhism? The bell at her waist shook, making crisp, jingling sounds. She gathered her thoughts and walked forward. The ghosts around her were howling, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws, as if waiting for an opportunity to pounce on her. She glanced around coldly. Just as she was about to look away, she caught a glimpse of a ghostly figure. It looked like the cultivator who had died in her hand before. She was shocked and thought to herself, "This isn't a place of Buddhism. Could it be that this is her own illusory memory? No, that's not right. If it's an illusory memory, these people shouldn't have appeared." Chapter 39:10. A mournful scream filled with hatred rang out. Perhaps they had touched something, but the ghosts who had been hesitating on whether to go forward or not, upon hearing the scream, roared and floated towards Feng Jiu. Wisps of ghosts floated out like black smoke towards her. Powerful yin qi surrounded her entire body, and she couldn't see anything else except for a dense mass of black smoke. Feng Jiu immediately adjusted the aura in her body, and the emerald-edged sword in her hand was covered in flames. With a whoosh, she attacked her surroundings. The sword aura and flames intertwined and drew an arc around her, dispersing all the ghosts that had surrounded her. She wore a dazzling red dress, and her beautiful face carried a touch of coldness. Her gaze was sharp and contained a sense of oppression as she looked at the ghosts around her. Her lips curled into a cold smile. "When you were alive, you weren't even my match. Now that you're dead, you're even less of a match for me." The emerald-edged sword in her hand, which contained flames, slashed in front of her. With a whoosh, she pointed it diagonally to the ground. She raised her chin slightly, and her gaze was like that of a ruler looking down on the ghosts. Her voice was sharp and terrifying as she said, "I, Feng Jiu, have never regretted killing anyone in my entire life. You've all died under my sword, so you all deserve to die. If you're still lingering around, I don't mind sending you on your way." Her voice, which contained a sense of oppression and the aura of a powerful expert, along with a powerful spiritual aura, spread through the air. Her voice was so magnanimous, and her gaze was so fearless. Her aura was so powerful that it caused the ghosts around her to not dare to take even half a step forward. They all circled around her, wanting to leave, but seemed unwilling to do so. Feng Jiu's cold gaze swept across them, and she held the sword diagonally to the ground in her hand. Step by step, she walked forward. In front of her, the ghosts were intimidated by her powerful aura and terrifying aura, and had no choice but to make a path for her to pass. Feng Jiu walked forward. She only knew that as she walked forward, the darkness in front of her gradually dissipated. The ghosts around her also disappeared. Finally, the forest appeared in front of her again. She could not help but look up and see the sunlight. She could also hear the birds chirping in the branches. She narrowed her eyes and stopped in her tracks. She looked at the sunlight above her head and thought about the ghosts and ghosts from before. Along the way, countless people had died in her hands. Her hands were stained with blood, but in her heart, she believed that all those who died deserved to die. She stood between heaven and earth with a clear conscience. 9. Amidst the sunlight, a gentle voice rang out. That familiar voice caused her to be slightly startled. A look of astonishment appeared on her face as she froze on the spot. A white robe hung down from the tree beside her, fluttering gently in the wind. Looking at the corner of the white robe, her heart suddenly trembled, and she instinctively looked up. She saw a handsome man in snow-white robes leaning against a tree branch. His features were picturesque, and there was a smile in his dark eyes. He was looking at her gently. 9. That voice called out again. It was just like how he had always addressed her, with his unique warmth and aura. Emo-chun. Chapter 39:11. Ajio, I've been waiting for you here for a long time. Emo-chun's voice was as gentle as ever. He sounded like a longtime friend, but also like a longtime lover. There was tenderness and tolerance in his voice. Fengjie was stunned. She was truly stunned. She felt that this Emo-chun was an illusion. She felt that this Emo-chun did not exist. However, everything about him was so familiar. Even his aura was exactly the same. It was so similar that she could not tell the difference between reality and illusion. She did not know whether this was an illusion or not. Emo-chun jumped down from the tree and landed steadily on the ground. He stood in front of her and looked at her with a smile. What's wrong? Don't you recognize me? Fengjie did not speak. She did not know what to say or how to say it. If there was anyone she felt guilty towards in her life, it would undoubtedly be Emo-chun in front of her. Looking at the person in front of her who seemed to be alive, scenes flashed through her mind. In the end, it stopped at the moment he died. It stopped at the scene where he disappeared from the world. Emo-chun, he was dead. Emo-chun, he no longer existed. He disappeared from the world, leaving behind only the lotus seed that she had given him. Looking at Fengjie's stunned expression, Emo-chun laughed softly. Ajio, it's me. You don't have to doubt it. Emo-chun. She opened her mouth, wanting to say something, but nothing came out. How are you and Emo-zay now? Are you all right? Emo-chun asked. Fengjie looked at him for a long time. Then she asked, Who are you? Emo-chun. I saw him disappear from the world with my own eyes. You can't be him. As she said this, her heart felt bitter. Emo-chun looked at her with the same gentle smile on his face. He said, I am me. I've always been me. You don't have to doubt it. He paused and raised his hand to face the sunlight. Fengjie looked over and saw that his body was transparent under the sunlight, as if he didn't exist. Seeing this, her eyes narrowed, and she couldn't help but look at him. Do you believe me now? He smiled and said casually, I am indeed dead. In that battle, my body dissipated between heaven and earth, and even my soul dissipated. However, there is one soul and one spirit residing in two places. Fengjie looked at him in shock. His heart was beating wildly, and his eyes were filled with ecstasy. He grabbed his arm with both hands. So, you're not dead yet? You're still here? Emo-chun shook his head. No, I'm already dead. What you see now is my immortal body bathed in the light of the immortal Buddha. However, my immortal body is still very weak. He smiled warmly and looked at her. That's why I've been waiting for you here. Hearing this, Fengjie let go of his hand. She felt the aura on his body and felt the familiar presence of the holy light. There was no ghostly aura on him, only immortal aura. She thought that perhaps this was why she found it hard to believe. You knew that I would come? She looked at him with a complicated gaze. The ancient golden lotus is here. Emo-chun smiled and said to her, Come with me. As he spoke, he turned and walked forward. Chapter 39:12. As she walked beside him, she asked, Do you know what happened to the ghosts and spirits that I encountered when I came in? Emo-chun walked slowly. Hearing her words, a smile appeared on his face. That's the sin of murder on your body. This place is the eye of the holy Buddha, and all the sins in the world will be revealed. If you came in, you would have to go through that path. He stopped in his tracks and turned to look at her. If your will is not strong enough, if you have any fear, then you will be haunted by the ghosts. However, to you, they are merely illusions. They are nothing to be worried about. The two of them continued walking slowly. Fengjie saw that this place was very quiet, and the aura was very clean. Her gaze involuntarily fell on Emo-chan. She saw that his aura was not strong, and when his body shone under the sunlight, there were faint traces of translucency. She could not help but think of the feeling when she grabbed his hands previously. That feeling did not feel like she was grabbing his body, because his body did not have any warmth. But then again, his physical body had already been destroyed. What appeared now was only a body formed by his soul. It could not be compared to his original body. However, how did he cultivate an immortal body in here? We're here. Emo-chan stopped in his tracks and looked at Fungio. He raised his hand and gestured, "Sit." Fungio looked around and saw that this place was surrounded by trees. In the middle, which was right beside them, was a pool of clear water. In the water, a golden lotus bloomed, emitting a dazzling light. Traces of holy light and pure spiritual aura were emitted from the light. This is the ancient golden lotus? Fungio looked at him. She did not expect that the ancient golden lotus would be here. That's right, this is the ancient golden lotus, Emo-chan said, and sat down on a rock. Fungio saw that there were 2 smooth rocks here. Seeing him sit on one of them, she sat down as well. She looked at him and said, "Can you tell me what's going on? Why would you, who had disappeared from this world, appear here?" Hearing her words, Emo-chan smiled and said, "Actually, I don't know why either. I only know that when I woke up, a part of my soul was already attached to this golden lotus. It was this ancient golden lotus that nourished this part of my soul, allowing me to reconstruct my immortal body." His voice paused for a moment before he continued. "Only when my spirit condensed did I realize that a part of my soul was attached to this ancient golden lotus, while a part of my soul was with you." Hearing this, Fungio was slightly startled. He thought of the lotus seed in his space and said, "At that time, you were gone. All that was left was the golden lotus seed I gave you. Later, I threw the golden lotus seed into the spiritual spring water in my space. Later, a small golden lotus grew out of the water." As she spoke, she moved her hand and a fingernail-sized golden lotus appeared in her palm. "I didn't expect that a part of your soul was on it." Emo-chan looked at her and smiled gently. "My master once said that my life and death tribulation should be on you. I will live because of you, and I will die because of you. Similarly, I will die because of you, and I will live because of you." With a wave of his hand, the tiny golden lotus landed in his hand. With a slight movement of his hand, it moved towards the center of his brows. Chapter 39:13. Seeing her look at him, he smiled and said, "Although this lotus seed is not an ancient golden lotus, it still has a wisp of the golden lotus's holy aura. It is because of this that I can attach a part of my soul to it." Hearing this, Fungio looked at him and asked, "Then you are relying on this ancient golden lotus to condense your immortal body? If I take the golden lotus away, then my soul is attached here, and the ancient golden lotus will reconstruct my immortal body. I will become one with the ancient golden lotus." As Emo-chan spoke, he looked at her. "If you take the ancient golden lotus away, I will also disappear." Hearing this, Fungio's eyes narrowed. She was silent, then said, "You have already died for us once. This time, no matter what, I will not let you disappear." Emo-chan smiled. "If you want to purify the black lotus of destruction, other than the ancient golden lotus, your blue lotus can also do it. You should know that your blue lotus is the first of the 4 lotuses. Ever since that battle, my blue lotus's power seemed to have fallen into a deep sleep." She sighed helplessly. "If that was not the case, I could have used the blue lotus's power of regeneration to heal Mose's injuries." "What happened to Mose? How did he get injured? Is it serious?" Emo-chan asked, somewhat surprised. "After that battle, he fell into a deep slumber for a long time and only woke up about a year ago. However, his legs were unable to stand up due to the black lotus chi being absorbed for too long. Even the pills I refined were unable to disperse the black lotus chi remaining on his legs." "I see," Emo-chan murmured. He did not think that Xinyuan Mose would also be so seriously injured in that battle. He didn't tell her that she could take the ancient golden lotus because he knew that the ancient golden lotus was now one with him. She would not do that. Let me tell you something happy, Feng Jiu said with a smile. I gave birth to a pair of twins, and they're already more than 5 months old. Hearing this, Imo-chan was slightly taken aback. Then, joy appeared on his face. A pair of twins? More than 5 months old? That must be very similar to you. He looked at her and felt happy for her from the bottom of his heart. He was happy to see her happy and happy. At the mention of the 2 children, Feng Jiu's expression became increasingly gentle. Yes, the 2 little fellows are both white and chubby and very cute. Mose and I have discussed it and asked them to acknowledge you as their godfather, so you are their godfather. Hearing this, Imo-chan was stunned. You want me to be your godfather? Does that mean I have a godson and a godson? His heart was filled with indescribable emotions. He looked at her and asked, What are the names of the 2 children? Feng Jiu smiled. Mose came up with their names. The son is called Mu-chun, and the daughter is called Mu-yu. Hearing this, Imo-chan's heart tightened. He stared at her for a long time, then softly murmured, These 2 names are really nice. He did not think that they would do so much for him. Thank you. Thank you for doing so much for me. He looked at Feng Jiu and said. Feng Jiu shook her head. There is nothing to thank. Compared to you, what we have done is nothing. I really want to see the 2 children. Chapter 39:14. Has your strength regressed because of the dormancy of the green lotus? Imo-chan asked, noticing that her aura was much weaker than before. I was seriously injured that time and had to recuperate for a long time. When I woke up, my strength had regressed a lot. I've been recuperating for more than a year and recultivating to build a good foundation. However, I've just broken through the peak of Immortal Venerable and entered the Immortal Emperor realm. She smiled and said, I'm not in a hurry to return to my peak. I still have to take one step at a time. Hearing this, Imo-chan said, This place is the holy land of the Buddhist sect. It's extremely beneficial to one's cultivation. Moreover, there are ancient golden lotuses here. You can cultivate here for a period of time and allow your strength to return to its peak. Then he smiled and said, If you didn't come, I wouldn't be able to leave here before my immortal body was completed. But now that you're here, you can take me out with you. Feng Jiu was slightly surprised. He looked at Imo-chan and asked, You mean, you can move this ancient golden lotus into your spatial spirit spring? This way, I will naturally be able to leave this place with you. However, before that, I hope that you can cultivate here for a period of time. The Buddhist chi here might be able to allow your green lotus to bloom. Upon hearing this, Feng Jiu paused for a moment. He looked at the golden lotus in the pool and said, Can this ancient golden lotus really help my green lotus bloom completely? If that's the case, then wouldn't Mosa's leg be cured? If this ancient golden lotus can't help you bloom the green lotus and reach the peak of the green lotus strength, then you can only find the red lotus of hellfire. The power of the alloy lotus and the red lotus will definitely allow the green lotus ancient strength to fully bloom. Feng Jiu shook his head and smiled. It took me a long time to find the whereabouts of the ancient golden lotus. As for the red lotus of hellfire, I have no clue at all. She looked at him and said, When I came in, the immortal Buddha told me that he could give me the ancient golden lotus, but I have to do 2 things for the myriad Buddhist sect. So, I can't stay here for too long. If that's the case, why don't you try and see if you can move the golden lotus? Imo-chan said as he looked at the ancient golden lotus that was emitting a golden light in the pool. Feng Jiu hesitated and asked, But if I move the golden lotus, won't your soul become unstable? Will your newly condensed immortal body be damaged? It wasn't easy for her to see that he still existed in this world. She saw him appear in front of her. She saw that he had a chance to be reborn. She didn't want to kill this chance that he had obtained with great difficulty. When he disappeared from her sight, she had secretly made a decision in her heart. If possible, she would not let him sacrifice so much for her in this life. She hoped that he could live a good life and live a wonderful life that belonged to him. I don't think so. Now that I've condensed an immortal body, it won't disappear so easily. Emo-chan smiled warmly and said, "It's just that I'm a little worried that you won't be able to move this golden lotus." "Why?" Feng-Jiu was slightly surprised. Chapter 39:15. He paused for a moment, then continued. "Although I am attached to the golden lotus and have condensed my soul into an immortal body, I am not completely one with the golden lotus. If you want to say anything, I can only say that I'm only a temporary host and not the master. Therefore, if you can't move the golden lotus away, then I can only stay here until I cultivate an immortal body." Hearing this, Feng-Jiu stood up and walked to the side of the pond to look at the golden lotus. The golden lotus had already bloomed, and because it was in the holy land of Buddhism, the light on its body was very dazzling. Around the golden lotus, there were halos of the holy Buddha. She looked at Emo-chan and said, "Let me try." She moved her palm and condensed her spiritual aura. Her sleeves moved with her palm and brushed the golden lotus in the pond. However, she found that after a stream of air passed by, the water surface rippled, but the golden lotus was still floating on the water surface. It only swayed slightly, creating ripples on the water surface. Seeing this, she was slightly surprised and said, "Is it really that strange?" One must know that her inner space was a treasure of heaven and earth. It had been with her for so many years, and she had stored many things in it. It could be said that this situation had never happened before. Emo-chan had a gentle smile on his face. He stood up and waved his sleeves lightly, then straightened his robes and said, "It is difficult to move, but it is not impossible to move." Hearing this, Feng-Jiu looked at him and asked, "Then how do we move it?" She just found that her spiritual aura could not get close to the golden lotus and could only brush past it. In other words, if her spiritual aura could not get close, then she could not move the golden lotus away. This ancient golden lotus was in the holy land of Buddhism, and its holy light was very strong. Moreover, it was illuminated by the holy Buddha. Even if her spiritual aura was pure and clean, she could not get close to it. In this way, even if the golden lotus was here, she could not move it away. No, it was actually possible. She knew that if she refined the golden lotus blood drop and fused it with her, she would be able to take it away. However, she could not use this method. Ever since she found out that Emo-chan had used the golden lotus to reconstruct his immortal body, she had planned to let him fuse with the ancient golden lotus. Once he cultivated his immortal body, he would be able to bind it with his blood. Then, not only would the golden lotus become his immortal weapon, it would also help his cultivation level increase greatly, especially since he had used the golden lotus to reconstruct his immortal body. If he had the golden lotus with him, it would be even more beneficial to him. Without waiting for him to speak, Feng-Jiu continued, "If you can't move it, then let it stay here. You're a holy son. If you cultivate in this Buddhist sacred ground, you might be able to condense an immortal body even faster." Hearing this, Emo-chan smiled and said, "If I leave the golden lotus here, I won't be able to help you when you go against the master of the black lotus in the future. If I move the golden lotus away, even if my immortal body is not formed, I can still use the power of the golden lotus to help you." "You haven't cultivated the immortal blood drop yet?" Feng-Jiu asked as his gaze fell on Emo-chan. Emo-chan shook his head. "How can it be so easy to cultivate a drop of immortal blood drop? Now that my body is exposed to the sun for a long time, it will become transparent. Moreover, I can't appear for very long every day." Chapter 39:16. Feng-Jiu frowned and asked worriedly, "If that's the case, won't your soul be injured?" "I won't be injured, but I'll probably fall into a deep sleep again," Emo-chan said. Hearing this, Feng-Jiu shook her head. "Then let me think of another way." As she spoke, she looked at the golden lotus in the pond. She bent down and touched the water in the pond. She felt a pure and holy power spreading through the water. Perhaps it was because the power of the golden lotus had entered her body through her fingertips but she felt that the green lotus in her body seemed to be releasing the power of the green lotus. She was surprised. Moving her palm, she guided the aura of the golden lotus into her body. After a while, she felt that the green lotus in her body that had been sleeping for a long time had awakened. She was overjoyed. She turned around and said, "Emo-chan." However, as soon as the words left her mouth, she froze. She looked at Emo-chan's body, which had become even more transparent than before. She was shocked and hurried to his side. "What happened to you? Why did your body become transparent?" Emo-chan smiled and comforted her. "It's nothing, don't worry. Your body is already like this, and you're still fine. How did you?" Halfway through her sentence, she suddenly paused and turned to look at the golden lotus in the pond. Then she looked at Emo-chan. "Is it because I guided the aura of the golden lotus in my body? Is that right?" He smiled gently. "It's all right. Didn't I tell you? I won't disappear so easily. It's just that my body is a little weaker. I'm sorry, I didn't think." She lowered her head apologetically, feeling very guilty. "It's all right. You don't have to say sorry." He raised his hand and wanted to rub her hair. Then he put his hand down and smiled gently. "Did the aura of the golden lotus awaken the green lotus in your body?" "Yes," she replied. "If that's the case, then you should cultivate here first. Not only the aura of the golden lotus, even the immortal Buddha aura here is beneficial to you." After hearing him say this more than once, she couldn't help but hesitate. She looked at him and said, "But if that's the case, wouldn't you?" Just now, she had only used her fingertip to draw the chi of the golden lotus into his body, and he had already become like this. If he cultivated here, wouldn't his newly condensed celestial body be beaten back to its original form? "I won't." He shook his head gently and said, "You can absorb the aura released by the ancient golden lotus to cultivate. That way, it won't harm me at all, and it won't harm the ancient golden lotus at all. At the same time, it can help you increase your strength." Hearing this, she said, "All right, I'll try to cultivate here first. Let's see if I can move the golden lotus out after the green lotus recovers. I've been out for a long time today. I have to go back first." As he spoke, he glanced at her, and with a tap of his foot, he walked towards the golden lotus in the pond. Fengjiu watched as his figure turned into a ray of golden light and disappeared into the ancient golden lotus. He couldn't help but be stunned. Emo-chan really did still exist, and he had obtained such an opportunity. The celestial body formed by the ancient golden lotus would be an immortal body in the future. It would be even better than Fengjiu's. Chapter 39:17. She had absorbed quite a bit of the golden lotus aura just now, so she wanted to take a look around first. After looking around, she walked into the forest. When Lung Hua woke up outside, it was already the next morning. He rubbed his aching head and got out of bed. When he thought of the scene before he fainted, he quickly got out of bed, put on his clothes, and walked out. Unexpectedly, as soon as the door opened, he saw monk Ijia sitting outside, eating a steamed bun and porridge. "Benefactor, you're awake? Come and eat with us," Monk Ijia said. He didn't even look at Lung Hua and continued eating his porridge. The little monk who was waiting at the side looked at Lung Hua and went forward. "Benefactor, you haven't washed up yet, right? You can wash up later." Before he finished, he added, "The steamed bun and porridge are still warm." "Master Ijia, where's my master?" Lung Hua walked forward and asked. The monk didn't speak and just ate quietly. When the little monk saw this, he said, "Benefactor, my master doesn't speak when he's eating vegetarian food. Why don't you wash up first?" Seeing that Master Ijia had no intention of speaking, Lung Hua paused for a moment and went to the back to wash up. When he returned, Ijia had already finished eating while wiping the corners of his mouth. Thus, he asked again, "Master Ijia, how's my master now?" Only then did Monk Ijia look at him and say, "Amit Ba, Benefactor, don't worry. Your master has entered the Buddhist sacred land and hasn't come out yet." Buddhist sacred land? Was she be in danger? Lung Hua asked worriedly. He remembered that Monk Bamei flicked his sleeve and his master disappeared. How did she go to the Buddhist sacred land? He, with that female benefactor's cultivation and willpower, even if there's danger, it shouldn't be a problem for her. He stood up and clasped his hands together. Benefactor, if you're not used to living on this mountain, you can go down the mountain on your own. If you're used to living here, you can come to the hall to listen to Buddhist teachings. This penniless monk will take his leave first. Lung Hua stood up and hurriedly returned the greeting. Take care, master. He watched as the two of them turned and walked out. When they were out of the courtyard, he sat down and took out his communication tablet to report what had happened to the Yama Lord. In a courtyard in the city, the two children were crying because Fengjiu was not by their side. Qin Xian and Bai Qingchen were holding small toys to coax them. After Xinyuan Mose left the room, he came to the courtyard and saw the two children crying nonstop. He asked, "Did you feed them?" "Yes. Both of them drank a bowl of goat milk," Qin Xian said. Hearing this, Xinyuan Mose said, "Bring it over." The two of them looked at each other before carrying the two children forward. Xinyuan Mose took one in each hand and held the two children in his arms. As soon as the two children were carried by him, perhaps because they smelled the familiar scent on his body, they gradually stopped crying. They just blinked their watery eyes and looked at him with tears. Looking at the two children's innocent eyes, Xinyuan Mose's heart softened. He lowered his head and kissed the two children's foreheads. He said softly, "Your mother went out, but she'll be back soon. So, before she comes back, Daddy will accompany you. You have to be good and not cry. Okay?" Chapter 39:18. When Lung Shuang and the others in the courtyard saw this scene, they could not help but reveal a smile. It seemed that the Yama Lord had a way out. Xinyuan Mose played with the two children. After they fell asleep, he asked Qin Xian to carry them into the room. After serving tea, Hui Lang stood aside and said, "Master, Madam only took Lung Hua to the myriad Buddhist sect. Will she be in danger? Shall we go and have a look?" "No need." Xinyuan Mose took a sip of tea and said, "She can solve it by herself." As soon as his voice fell, Lung Hua seemed to have noticed something. He turned his palm, and a communication jade card appeared in his hand. When he injected his spiritual power into it, Lung Hua's voice also entered their ears. Except for Qin Xian and Bai Qingchen, who were taking care of the two children in the room, the others were in the courtyard. At this time, when they heard Lung Hua's voice from the communication jade token, they couldn't help but look at each other. They listened to Lung Hua's story about what happened in the myriad Buddhist sect. When they heard that Master was sent to the holy land of the Buddhism sect by a white-browed monk, they couldn't help but look at Xinyuan Mose. However, they saw that he just put away the transmission jade token and didn't say anything. "Master, Madam has entered the holy land of the Buddhism sect. Will she be in danger?" Hui Lang asked worriedly. They were all here, but Madam was the only one who entered the holy land. They didn't know if she would be in danger. After all, Madam's strength had not recovered to its peak. Lung Hua is really something. Why didn't he go in with her? At least he could take care of her. Hui Lang muttered. Even if Lung Hua wanted to go in with her, he couldn't do it without their permission. What's more, since they said it was a holy land, they naturally wouldn't let people in casually. Chi Kong said in a calm voice. Then he added, "However, Master's adaptability is enough to deal with anything. We should have confidence in her. Disperse. Go do whatever you need to do. There's no need to crowd around here." Xinyuan Mose raised his hand and gestured for them to leave. Yes. Everyone responded, bowed, and retreated. Only Qin Xian and Lung Shuang were left waiting at the door. Xinyuan Mose took a sip of tea and looked at the blue sky. He thought to himself, "I wonder if she got the golden lotus?" After entering the Buddhist sacred ground, when would he return? At this time, he did not know what Fengjiu had encountered in the myriad Buddhist sect. Compared with their worries, Fengjiu seemed to be very relaxed. She walked around the Buddhist holy land and found that it was too big for her to walk through. Therefore, she just walked around. When she returned to the pool, she looked at the dazzling golden lotus in full bloom. Then she sat down cross-legged and put her hands on her body to cultivate. As her whole body and mind relaxed, Her state of mind also reached a state of calmness that had never been seen before. Her entire body relaxed as she gently absorbed the aura of the golden lotus in the air. What she didn't expect was that her meditation lasted for half a month. Chapter 39:19. Why did you stop? Imogen asked. She adjusted the energy in her body and stood up, saying, "My strength has increased too quickly in half a month. I can't just advance like this. I still need an opportunity." She looked at him and saw that his energy seemed to have stabilized. She asked, "How about you? Are you feeling better?" Imo-chan smiled. "Yes, with the energy of the golden lotus nourishing my spirit, I'm recovering faster." Fengjiu nodded and looked at the golden lotus in the pool, saying, "I didn't think that I would cultivate for half a month. They must be waiting anxiously. Let me try again and see if I can move the golden lotus away." "Okay," Imo-chan replied, and stood up to watch from the side. In half a month, not only had her strength increased, even the green lotus in her body had regained its vitality. This was something she did not expect before she left. She had not seen her children for half a month after leaving home. She could not wait to go back and see them. At that moment, she gathered her thoughts and gently exhaled. She closed her eyes and felt the energy inside. At the same time, she activated the green lotus energy in her body. A wisp of green lotus energy flowed out from her body and slowly came to the palm of her hand. Following the flow of spiritual energy from her palm, the green lotus energy enveloped the golden lotus in the pool. The green aura gradually approached the ancient golden lotus. Perhaps the ancient golden lotus had sensed the same aura as the ancient golden lotus, but did not reject the green lotus aura until the green lotus aura enveloped the ancient golden lotus. In the next moment, Fengjiu's heart moved. A golden light flashed, and the ancient golden lotus in the pond was moved into her space. It was also at that moment that Imo-chan transformed into a ray of golden light and vanished on the spot. She didn't even have the time to say a single word to Fengjiu. The ground suddenly shook violently. Fengjiu hurriedly steadied herself, but she couldn't resist the violent shaking. Suddenly, a suction force sucked her out. She only felt her vision blur, and when she reappeared, she was already in the main hall. "Master." In the main hall, Lung Hua hurriedly got up to support Fengjiu, whose body swayed slightly and almost fell. He was pleasantly surprised by her appearance. The other monks in the hall looked up at the trembling Buddha statue. Sitting on the ground, they also felt the ground tremble. However, with Fengjiu's appearance, the tremors gradually dissipated and returned to normal. They couldn't help but turn their heads and look at the woman in red standing in the middle of the hall. They didn't expect her to have stayed inside for half a month. Moreover, the tremors indicated that she had already taken the ancient golden lotus from the Holy Land. Amitabha, white eyebrows, put his palms together and murmured. He slowly stood up and looked at Fengjiu. "Benefactor, you are indeed an extraordinary person." Fengjiu returned the salute and asked, "Immortal Buddha-chan, what do you need me to do?" A few months ago, the Saraira and a Heart Sutra in the Jiuxiao Pagoda of the Myriad Buddhas sect were stolen. The person who stole the Saraira and the Heart Sutra is my disciple. At this point, he lowered his head in shame and chanted Amitabha. He paused for a moment and then said, "I hope that benefactor can help me find those two items. This is one thing." Chapter 39:20. Monk White Eyebrows paused for a moment, then put his palms together and said, "Amitabha, he is dead." The old monk lowered his eyes with a trace of sadness and said, "He lost his mind for a moment. After stealing our magic treasure, he was killed by the person who ordered him to do so." Fengjiu was silent and did not say a word. One could tell that even though He-chan, Immortal Buddha's disciple, had disappointed him by stealing their sect's holy item, He-chan's face was still filled with grief at the mention of his death. It was clear that He-chan had deep feelings for his disciple. The second thing. Monk White Eyebrows paused for a moment, then looked at Fengjiu and said, "Benefactor, you are the star of Phoenix and the Lord of heaven and earth. You are destined to come to our Myriad Buddhas sect. The second thing is that I hope you can protect our Myriad Buddhas sect for 100 years. If within 100 years, our Myriad Buddhas sect suffers a great calamity, please be lenient for the sake of the golden lotus you gave us today. When the monks in the hall heard this, they were shocked and involuntarily looked at Zen Immortal Buddha with shock and doubt. Why would the Immortal Buddha ask her for this? Would their Myriad Buddhas sect suffer a great calamity within 100 years? Moreover, the Star Phoenix, the Lord of heaven and earth, was she the benefactor called Fengjiu? If the Myriad Buddhas sect was really in trouble, would she be able to help the Myriad Buddhas sect avoid this calamity? For a moment, the monks looked at Fengjiu with complicated expressions. They did not say a word and just thought about it in their hearts. Hearing this, Fengjiu was slightly surprised. A great calamity? She looked at Zen Immortal Buddha and saw his solemn expression. So she said, Immortal Buddha, don't worry. I, Fengjiu, promise you, as long as the Myriad Buddhas sect needs my help in the future, I will not refuse. She paused and thought for a moment. Looking at the great Buddha in the hall, she said, I am indebted to the Myriad Buddhas sect today, and there will be a time for me to repay the kindness. Today, I will leave a wisp of divine thought here. If that day really comes, I will do my best to help. As she spoke, she condensed a strand of divine sense and flicked it into the Buddha's sacred realm. In the future, if the Myriad Buddhas sect really faced a great calamity, even if they didn't need to tell her, the divine thought left here would let her know when the Buddha moved. Amipa, thank you, benefactor. The white-browed monk murmured softly and continued, This journey points to disaster. Therefore, please allow Ijie to travel with you. He will tell you what you need to know along the way. Upon hearing this, Fengjiu couldn't help but look at the monk standing beside Whitebrow. He smiled and said, Let Master Ijie travel with me? That's not a good idea, is it? He was a monk, and she was a woman. If they were traveling together, she wouldn't mind. However, she was afraid of ruining the reputation of the great monk. Moreover, this monk was a martial ancestor in the Myriad Buddhist sect. How could she ask him to follow her everywhere? Thinking of this, Fengjiu laughed. Unexpectedly, Whitebrow looked at Fengjiu and said solemnly, Benefactor, this journey is dangerous. Moreover, you will face a bloody calamity. You have to be careful. Upon hearing this, Fengjiu stopped smiling. She looked at Whitebrow and said, I will face a bloody calamity. Chapter 39:21. When she went out, she didn't feel anything if she encountered danger. What she was most afraid of was that her children would be implicated because of her. After all, now that she was a mother, her first concern was her children's safety. That's right. Monk Baimei nodded and said, But don't worry too much. Your fated star is shining high, so you will be able to turn misfortune into blessing. Hearing this, Fengjiu frowned slightly. She bowed to him and said, I know. Thank you, Immortal Buddha. Ijie, you can go with the benefactor. Monk Baimei said to Monk Ijie beside him. Yes. He put his palms together and answered. Seeing this, Fengjiu said, I've been here for more than half a month. It's time to go down the mountain. Masters, goodbye. She bowed to them as she spoke. Amipa, take care, benefactor. The monks put their palms together and murmured softly. Master Ijie, do you need to pack your things? Fengjiu looked at the monk. Amipa, as a monk, everything is empty. There's no need to pack anything. I'll go down the mountain with you, benefactor. Monk Ijie said, frowning slightly. In that case, let's go. She cupped her hands to the crowd and turned to walk out. Monk Ijie bowed to Monk Baimei and the others and left with Fengjiu. Watching them leave, until their figures disappeared from sight, someone finally couldn't help but ask, Immortal Buddha, will there be a great disaster in the next 100 years? Monk Baimei put his palms together and said, Yes, there will be a great disaster in the Myriad Buddhist sect within 100 years. However, even I don't know when it will be. I can only ask her to protect us for 100 years. I hope she can help us get through this disaster." Hearing this, the monks couldn't help but look at each other with astonishment in their eyes. One of them asked again, "Immortal Buddha, who is that benefactor?" They only knew that he said she was the master of heaven and earth and the phoenix star, but they didn't know where this came from. "She is blessed by the heavens," White Brow said. He looked at the sky outside and walked out slowly. On the other side, Fengjiu and Leng Hua went down the mountain. Compared to the two of them when they went up the mountain, there was an additional monk beside them when they went down the mountain. Along the way, Master Yi Jie told Fengjiu about some of the things that had happened. Then, he quietly walked beside them. After Fengjiu memorized the information, he smiled and said, "Great Master Yi Jie, I've been away from the mountain for more than half a month. I miss my children and my husband very much, so I'll have to discuss this with my husband when I get home. If they don't come along, I'll probably have to stay at home for 2 more days to accompany my children. At that time, I'll have to ask you to stay for the time being." "Ba, I'll follow your arrangement," he said slowly, indicating that he had no objections. Perhaps it was because he thought that he could return to see the children, Mose, and the rest. Fengjiu's mood became cheerful. On this trip up the mountain, other than obtaining the Golden Lotus, she also knew that Mo Chen also had such an opportunity. She was really happy. Chapter 39:22. The distance between the myriad Buddhist sect and the city where Xinyuan Mose was located was not close. Therefore, when Fengjiu and the others returned to the city, the sky had already darkened. Lanterns were hung high everywhere in the city, especially the red lanterns hanging on the shops on both sides of the street, which became a beautiful scene in the market. Men and women were walking along the street in groups of 3 or 5. Children were running and playing on the street. The hawkers' cries and the pedestrians' whispers mixed together to form a lively and peaceful scene. Fengjiu looked at the wind chimes on the street, which made a crisp and pleasant sound in the wind. So he stopped and walked toward the stall. The monk stopped and looked at Fengjiu, who was dressed in red with a smile on his face. He picked a string of wind chimes and a colorful pinwheel from the stall. His eyes flashed slightly. She was the destined phoenix star, the Lord of heaven and earth. However, she was also the mother of 2 children. Like ordinary mothers, she always thought of her 2 children. "Master, it's just ahead." Fengjiu put the 2 small gifts into the space. After saying this to Monk Yijie, he continued to walk forward. After crossing the street and turning into an alley, the monk looked at the quiet house in front of him and then looked at the man who knocked on the door. "Knock, knock. Who is it?" Luo Yu's voice came from inside. After a while, the door opened. When Luo Yu saw Fengjiu and the others standing outside, he could not help but smile in surprise. "Master, Leng Hua, you're back. This is great. Come in, come in." Why is there a monk behind you?" Luo Yu said, looking back. The more he looked at the monk, the more familiar he felt. He said, "This monk looks very familiar. This is Master Yijie," Fengjiu said with a smile. "Oh," Luo Yu replied, his gaze still lingering on the monk. "Why did Master come back with a monk?" "Master, please." Fengjiu turned sideways and made a gesture of invitation. "Almsgiver, please." The monk did not go first, but let Fengjiu go first. Fengjiu smiled and walked inside. He said to Leng Hua, "Clean up a room for Master Yijie to rest and prepare some vegetarian food." "Yes, Master. Don't worry. I'll arrange it," Leng Hua said. After entering the house, Leng Hua took the monk to rest, while Luo Yu and Fengjiu went to the backyard. Looking at Master, whom he had not seen for half a month, Luo Yu hurriedly asked, "Master, have you got the ancient golden lotus? Why did the monk come with you?" "I got the ancient golden lotus. As for him, I promised the myriad Buddha's sect to do something for them, so Master Yijie came with me." As Fengjiu spoke, she walked to the backyard and asked, "How is everything at home while I was away?" Hearing her question, Luo Yu grinned and said, "Don't worry, Master. Everyone is fine." In the beginning, the 2 little masters would cry and make a fuss when they were sleeping. However, with Yin Zhu's coaxing, They no longer made a fuss. Furthermore, they eat a lot every day and have grown a little bigger than when Master left. Feng Jiu was relieved. That's good. Master, you're back. Du Fan saw her and bowed with a smile. I'm back, Feng Jiu replied. Chapter 39:23. Feng Jiu looked at them and nodded slightly. Yes. They smiled and didn't follow him into the courtyard. Instead, they stood outside and watched their master walk into the courtyard. Then, Chi Kong said to the people around him, "It seems that there will be a lot of fun tonight." Ha ha! Master is finally back. No matter what, it should be lively. How about this? I'll go to the restaurant in the city to book a table of food and have them send it over directly. Du Fan said with a smile. He closed the fan in his hand and patted Hui Lang on the shoulder. Master has been gone for half a month. Let them have a good time. You don't have to go in and join in the fun. If you have any questions, it won't be too late to ask at dinner. You're right. Then I'll go with you to book a table. Hui Lang grinned and put his arm around Du Fan's shoulder. Luo Yu touched his chin and said thoughtfully, if you're going to book a table, it's best to order a few vegetarian dishes. There was a big monk who came back with Master just now. Hearing this, everyone was slightly surprised. They looked at each other and said, Big monk? Why is there a monk? He came back with Master and Lung Hua? Yes, it's Master Ijia. We met him on the way. We just entered the door together. Now Master asked Lung Hua to take him to the guest room to rest first, Luo Yu said. Hearing this, Du Fan nodded. I see. Then we'll order a few vegetarian dishes when we book a table. That's all for now. We'll talk later. As soon as he finished speaking, he walked out with Hui Lang. As they walked, they discussed which restaurant had the best food and wine. Lung Hua and Qin Xian, who were waiting outside the room in the courtyard, saw Feng Jiu come back. They hurriedly went forward and bowed. Master, well, you can leave now, Feng Jiu said. He opened the door and walked inside. In the room, on the bed, Xinyuan Mose was lying on his side. He supported his head with one hand and watched the two children rolling around on the bed, squeaking. He sometimes stretched out his hand to tease the two children, making them giggle. At this moment, a familiar breath approached. He was slightly surprised. When he looked back, he saw a red figure hugging him from behind. A familiar voice with a smile came into his ears. I'm back. Xinyuan Mo smirked and turned to lie on his side. Reaching out, he pulled her into his embrace and kissed her. After the kiss, he let go of her and said, Why were you gone for so long? Did everything go well? Feng Jiu smiled, lying on his chest, and said, Well, the people of the Million Buddhas sect didn't embarrass me. They sent me to a holy place of their Buddhist sect. I saw the ancient golden lotus there, and there was an unexpected surprise. As she said, she got up, picked up her two children, and kissed their pink little faces. She smiled and called, My babies, come on, let me kiss you again. The two children smelled the familiar breath on her body, and their little faces showed a happy expression. They rubbed in her arms like two little puppies, and their little mouths were in a mess, as if they were looking for something. Seeing this, Xinyuan Mo sat up. He reached out and lifted his son from Feng Jiu's chest, put him on the bed, and said, Go and play. Chapter 39:24. The little guy was very happy. He stretched out his chubby hands to hug Feng Jiu's face and giggled, making Feng Jiu chuckle as well. Xinyuan Mose looked at his wife and children, his eyes overflowing with gentleness and love. After a while, he asked, Did you say there was an unexpected surprise? Hearing this, Feng Jiu hugged the two children, sat on the bed, and looked at him, saying, I saw Mo Chun in the sacred land of Buddhism. Xinyuan Mose was slightly surprised, saying, You saw Mo Chun in the sacred land of Buddhism? An illusion? No, it's real. He still exists. Feng Jiu said with a serious expression. However, he is indeed dead. Only a part of his soul is left in this world. The power of his soul is condensed in the golden lotus seed that he left behind. The power of his soul somehow went to the sacred land of Buddhism and attached itself to the golden lotus. This time, I went to the sacred land of Buddhism to look for the ancient golden lotus and found out that he still existed. Hearing Fengjiu's words, Xianyuan Mo's frowned slightly, saying, "Could it be an illusion? He clearly disappeared from this world. How could there be a part of his soul left in this world?" As he said this, he held her hand with both hands and said in a low voice, "Are you still blaming yourself for his death? Is that why you had such an illusion?" He saw with his own eyes that the person disappeared from this world. Not even a part of his body was left behind. How could he still exist in this world? Fengjiu smiled, saying, "At first, I didn't believe that he still existed. I thought it was an illusion after entering the sacred land. But later, it was confirmed that he really did exist. He really did exist." She paused for a moment before continuing. "However, his soul is very weak right now. Because he was attached to the ancient golden lotus for so long, he was able to condense his celestial body. This time, when I moved the ancient golden lotus from the Buddhist holy land into my space, he also entered my space." "So he is now in your space?" Xianyuan Mose asked. Fengjiu nodded. "Yes, he attached himself to the ancient golden lotus. Now that the ancient golden lotus is in my space, he is naturally in it. However, because his soul and immortal body are unstable, he can't appear for long." Hearing this, Xianyuan Mo smiled, saying, "If that's the case, then that's good." As for the fact that he was still alive and had obtained such an opportunity, she would no longer feel guilty or blame herself for what he had done for her in the future. "Tomorrow I'll see if I can let him come out and meet you." I told him that our son and daughter recognized him as their adoptive father. Fengjiu smiled, looking at the two children rolling on the bed. Calm. As Xianyuan Mo spoke, he seemed to have thought of something and asked, "In that case, you wouldn't be able to absorb the power of the golden lotus?" "Yes, I'm thinking of letting Immo Chun inherit the ancient golden lotus's power. His spirit is attached to the ancient golden lotus. This is his opportunity. Moreover, it's good that he obtained this power. At least he won't be our enemy. When we deal with the Devil Lord in the future, if he has already achieved a mortal body, he will naturally be able to lend us a hand." Chapter 39:25. There's one more thing. Fengjiu looked at her and said, "The Thousand Buddhas sect gave me the golden lotus and asked me to do something for them." She simply told him what the white-browed monk had asked her to do and said, "So when I came back this time, the monk called Ijia also came back with me. He said that he wanted to go with me. In addition, the white-browed monk also asked me to protect the Thousand Buddhas sect for 100 years. If there is a catastrophe within 100 years, I have to help them." Hearing this, Xianyuan Mose asked, "What are you going to do? Do you want to go by yourself or with us?" Fengjiu couldn't help but look at the two children with reluctance in her eyes. "This time, I went to the Thousand Buddhas sect and stayed for half a month. If I go to help them find the Saraira, I don't know how much time it will take. When I think of not being able to see the two children, I feel reluctant. But if I take them with me, I'm worried that they will be in danger and be in danger." At this time, she was also in a dilemma. Xianyuan Mose pondered for a while and said, "In that case, take the two children with you. There will be no problem with so many people. What's more, if you go on this trip, you probably won't come back for a year and a half. In this case, it's better to go together, lest the two children can't recognize you." "Really? What if there's really danger on the road?" She reached out and poked little Yu-er, who had climbed on her leg. Xianyuan Mo smiled and said, "Take them with you. If there is danger, we will protect them. What's more, with so many of us, what danger could be difficult for us?" Hearing this, Fengjiu thought for a while and said, "That's true. Okay, then let's go together. But let's rest for 2 days before we set off. My green lotus has awakened. Let me see if I can cure your leg." "Okay," Xianyuan Mose responded. Seeing that she was about to roll up the corner of his trousers, he immediately reached out and grabbed her hand and said, "You just came back, so take a rest first. My leg is not in a hurry." "It's okay, I'm not tired. And I also want to know if my current power of green lotus can cure your leg." As she spoke, she got out of bed and rolled up his trousers. First, she massaged his leg, and then used silver needles to stimulate the circulation of his acupoints. After a while, she condensed a green chi in her palm and covered his knees, trying to use the chi of green lotus to restore the feeling in his legs. Xianyuan Mose looked at her quietly, his eyes full of gentle affection. He looked at her focused and serious face and thought of something. Ajio, how long will it take for Mo-chun to cultivate an immortal body? At most. It is at most. As for when Mo-chan will be able to cultivate the immortal body, I really don't know. She paused for a moment before continuing, but with Mo-chin's talent and luck, perhaps it won't take more than a few years. She raised her head and looked at him. Tapping his knee, she asked, "Do you feel anything?" Chapter 39:26. Upon hearing this, Fengjiu broke into a smile. It seems like it's still somewhat useful. She used the green lotus chi to treat him for a while until a thin layer of sweat appeared on his forehead. Only then did she withdraw her hand and say, "I'll try again tomorrow. Have Lung Shuang and the others prepare some water for you. Go take a bath," he said slowly as he pulled down his trousers. "Okay," Fengjiu replied. She got up and walked outside to call out. When she saw Lung Hua outside the courtyard, she walked over and asked, "Have you settled Great Master Ijia?" "I've already settled, Master," Lung Hua said with a smile. "I heard from them that Du Fan and Hui Lang want to book a banquet. They're planning to have some fun tonight." Fengjiu nodded and said, "That's good too. Let's set the banquet in the front courtyard." "All right, remember to order a few vegetarian dishes for Great Master Ijia. They know that Great Master Ijia will also be there, so they'll order a few vegetarian dishes." Lung Hua asked again, "Master, are we leaving together or what? If we leave together, I'll have to deal with the matters of this residence first." "Let's go together. I just talked to Mose. He said that we'll leave together so that we can look after each other along the way. Besides, we don't know how long we'll be gone this time," Fengjiu said. She was still a little worried when she thought of the bloody disaster that the white-browed monk had mentioned. If they left together, she was really worried that they would implicate the two children. However, if she sent the two children away, she couldn't bear to and wouldn't feel at ease. No matter what, she wouldn't feel at ease. Bringing them along with her would make her feel at ease. Forget it. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. Let nature take its course." "All right then. I'll deal with the matters of the residence first tomorrow," Lung Hua said. He bowed and left first. "Master, the bath water is ready." Lung Shuang came over and said, "Okay," Fengjiu said, then turned and walked back. After taking a bath, she changed into a new set of clothes and dried her hair. She thought of the little toys she had bought on the way back to play with, so she walked into the inner room with a smile. "Why aren't these two little fellows sleeping? Aren't you tired of rolling around on the bed?" She smiled and sat down by the bed. She reached out and rubbed the two children's little heads. Looking at the two identical little faces, she couldn't help but smile. "Mose, look at our son and daughter. Why are they so cute? When you grow up in the future, do you think it will still be the same?" The corners of Xianyuan Mose's lips curled up slightly. His eyes were filled with love as he looked at the two fair and tender children. He said, "When they grow up in the future, their appearances will only become more and more beautiful." However, although the two of them look the same, their personalities are as different as heaven and earth. That's true. Our son's character is like yours, and our daughter is like mine." She smiled and took out a wind chime and a windmill from her space. "Little babies, look at what this is." The wind chime gently shook, producing a clear and melodious sound. The rainbow-colored windmill spun, causing the two children to giggle. They stretched out their chubby little hands, wanting to take it. "Do you want it? You don't know how to play with it yet. Mother will let you play with it." She smiled and teased the two children. The rainbow-colored windmill spun in her hand. As the windmill spun, the rainbow-colored ribbons flew. It was very beautiful. "Come, let's go to the front and prepare to eat." She hung the wind chime by the window, then placed the windmill at the head of the small bed where the children slept. Only then did she go forward to pick up the two children. Chapter 39:27. Fengjiu was all smiles as she carried the two children in her arms, one in each hand. Only when she carried them in her arms did she realize how heavy these two little fellows were. Moreover, they were wearing a lot of clothes, and their whole bodies were plump. "No, I can't carry two." She hastily put down one of them, fearing that the child in her arms would twist and fall. "Lung Shuang, come in and carry the child." Xin Yuan Mose called out and let Lung Shuang, who was outside, come in and help carry one child. Lung Shuang, who was waiting outside the room, came in and took the child from Fengjiu. He said, "Master, Yama Lord, the banquet in front has already been set up. You can go over now. And you take Yuer over first. We'll come in a while." Fengjiu said and let him carry little Yuer to the front. "Yes," Lung Shuang answered. After bowing, he carried the child and retreated. Xin Yuan Mose got down from the bed and sat in the wheelchair. Looking at her carrying the child, he said, "Let's go." Little Mu Chun obediently stayed in Fengjiu's arms. He didn't make a fuss and only quietly looked at her. That well-behaved little appearance made Fengjiu couldn't help but lower her head and kiss him. "Son, mother will take you to the front to have some fun." Seeing her kiss his son again, Xin Yuan Mose couldn't help but say, "This boy can't always be kissed. He'll be shy in the future." Fengjiu's beautiful eyes smiled as she glanced at him and said, "Yes, yes, yes. If you can't kiss a son, then kissing a daughter is fine, right? Cough, you can also kiss me." He lightly coughed as he looked at her with his deep black eyes. Hearing these words, Fengjiu teasingly smiled. "I still remember that time when I accidentally kissed you. You directly fainted." Hearing her mention this matter, Xin Yuan Mose was embarrassed and said, "Let's not talk about the past. Let's go. I don't want them to wait too long." As he spoke, he pushed the wheelchair out. Seeing him walk out, Fengjiu pursed his lips and smiled. He carried the child and followed beside him. In front of them, everyone was gathered. They did not put several tables together. Instead, there was a small rectangular table in front of two people with wine and dishes on it. Where's Lung Hua? Why haven't I seen him yet?" Hui Lang looked around and didn't see Lung Hua, so he asked. He went to invite Master Yijie. As Du Fan spoke, he placed wine on everyone's table and said with a smile, "Master has been away for half a month, and we've also been idle here for half a month. Now that Master has returned, it feels much livelier. Lung Shuang is here. Is he carrying little Mu Chun or little Yuer?" Luo Yu stood up and wanted to check on the child, but Hui Lang was faster. He stood up and pressed a hand on Luo Yu's shoulder, forcing him to sit down. "Just sit down. I'll carry the little master here." Hui Lang grinned and patted his shoulder. He quickly walked over to Lung Shuang and asked, "Lung Shuang, is the child you're carrying little Yuer?" "Yes," Lung Shuang replied. Then he stepped forward and reached out to take the child from her. Little Yuer was more lively and active. She was used to everyone fighting to carry her, so she didn't cry when Hui Lang carried her. Instead, she giggled and her saliva stained his lapel. Chapter 39:28. Luo Yu cast a glance at him and said, "What kind of uncle are you?" As he spoke, he also stood up and walked towards him, saying, all right. You'll be fine after holding her for a while. Let me hold her. Hui Lang dodged with the child in his arms and said, "What's there to hold? I've only just taken it from you. I haven't even hugged her yet." As he spoke, he retreated until he seemed to have bumped into someone behind him. "Be careful. Don't hurt the little master." Lung Hua's voice rang out. At the same time, he helped him up, worried that if he didn't hold her firmly, she would hurt the little master. Who would have thought that when he looked into his arms, little Yuer's eyes were curved into crescents, and she was smiling very happily. The monk at the side looked at the child in Hui Lang's arms and softly said, "Amit Ba, great monk, we meet again," Hui Lang said as he turned around with the child in his arms. "Benefactors and I are fated to meet again," Monk Yijie said as he stood quietly with his eyes lowered. Great monk, this way please. Leng Hua gestured for him to take a seat. As they walked forward, they saw Feng Jiu and Xianyuan Mose coming from not far away. When Huilang saw them, he grinned and said, Master and Madam are here. Monk Yijie's gaze swept past Feng Jiu and landed on Xianyuan Mose, who was sitting in a wheelchair beside her. He was a little surprised to see him in a wheelchair. Great monk, you don't have to be so restrained here, Feng Jiu said with a smile. She carried the child to the front and introduced, This is my husband, Xianyuan Mose. This is our son and daughter. Umipa. The monk put his hands together and murmured, Benefactor, you have both a son and a daughter. You're very blessed. Feng Jiu smiled and saw Monk Yijie come to Xianyuan Mose and bowed. Yijie greets Benefactor. Great monk, you don't have to be so polite. Please take a seat. Xianyuan Mose said and invited him to take a seat. Thank you, Benefactor. As the monk spoke, he nodded slightly at the two people before he was led by Leng Hua to a seat on the side. Feng Jiu nodded inwardly when he saw that they had arranged everything well. If a few tables are placed together, then Monk Yijie would definitely not be able to eat at the same table as them. After all, other than wine, there were also meat dishes on the table. Therefore, it was more suitable for them to sit on a small table with food placed on the floor. She glanced at Xianyuan Mose, who was beside her, and saw him lift his body up. His entire body floated up, and then he sat cross-legged on the soft mat on the floor. Thus, she carried the child and sat down beside him. Seeing that Huilang was still hugging little Yu, Feng Jiu smiled and said, Huilang, hugging little Yu won't fill your stomach. Put her on the bamboo chair at the side first. Come, let me do it. Qin Xin stepped forward to take little Yu and put her on the baby bamboo chair at the side. Then, she went to Feng Jiu's side and said, Master, give me the little masters. Feng Jiu responded and handed the child in his arms to her. He said, Just push them to my side. Yes. Qin Xin responded and placed the two children on the baby bamboo chair. Then, she moved them to Feng Jiu's side. Master, this is for the two little masters. Bai Qingsheng brought the warm goat's milk over. All right, everyone sit down and eat. Otherwise, the food will get cold. Feng Jiu said and indicated for them to sit down. Then, she fed the two children the warm goat's milk. Chapter 39:29. Ba. That's right, the monk replied. Xianyuan Mose played with the wine cup in his hand and said, Buddhism emphasizes that the four elements are all vanity and the cycle of cause and effect. Since it was you who lost it, why did you think of asking us to find it for you? The monk looked up at Xianyuan Mose and said, There is a cause and effect. The reason why Buddhism sent me and Benefactor Feng was because she accepted the ancient golden lotus of Buddhism and promised the Holy Buddha. Among millions of people, only Benefactor Feng went to the myriad Buddhist sect. Naturally, she is fated to be with Buddhism. Xianyuan Mose looked up at him and said, You are a monk. If you travel with us, aren't you afraid of causing gossip? There are thousands of Tao in the world. I walk my own Tao and never care about what others say, he said with his hands together and lowered his eyes. Hearing this, Xianyuan Mose smiled and said, Well said. This is a toast to you. As he said this, he raised his cup and drank the wine in the cup. The monk picked up the tea in front of him and said, I will use tea in place of wine. As he said this, he also bowed. Everyone looked at each other and smiled. Feng Jiu finished feeding the two children the goat's milk and said with a smile, Master, try these vegetarian dishes. Master Yijie, these are the vegetarian dishes that we specially prepared for you. Huilang said with a grin. He picked up a piece of meat and said, If it weren't for the fact that you monks don't eat meat, I would like to invite you to try the taste of this meat. Ba. Benefactor, thank you for your kindness. I can eat vegetarian dishes. As he said this, he picked up his chopsticks and bowl and ate quietly. Everyone chatted, drank, and talked about happy things. Time passed quickly. When the banquet was over, everyone dispersed. Feng Jiu brought the two children and Xianyuan Mose back to the courtyard. They stayed here for another 2 days. Fengjiu also helped Xianyuan Mo's heal his legs with the power of the Green Lotus. However, the power of the Green Lotus did not return to its peak state. Moreover, it had been used a lot these 2 days, so the power of the Green Lotus seemed to have weakened. In the main courtyard, Fengjiu sat with Xianyuan Mo's. He looked at the 2 children in the courtyard and said, I estimate that it will take some time before you can stand up again. Qing Lian's strength is much weaker than before. It will take a few days before she can continue the treatment. It doesn't matter. It'll get better eventually. Just take it slow, Xianyuan Mo said, and then asked, we'll set off tomorrow. Is everything ready? And don't worry. It's all ready. They're all ready too. Fengjiu smiled and said, I just sent Qin, Xian, and Fan Lin out to buy some dry food. We can eat it on the road. Hearing this, Xianyuan Mo said, there'll be plenty of food on the road. There'll be wild game everywhere. It's good to prepare some for the monks. Fengjiu smiled and said, and it'll be more convenient to prepare some for the road. As soon as she finished speaking, she seemed to sense something and said, it seems like Mo Chan has come out of the ancient golden lotus. I'll ask him to come out. As she said this, she used her mind. A golden light flashed past. In the next moment, Mo Chan, dressed in white, appeared in front of the 2. His figure was slightly illusory, as if it was transparent under the sunlight. However, it was real. Chapter 39:30. Mo Chan smiled warmly. I didn't expect it either. His gaze fell on the 2 children at the side. With a gentle smile, he asked, are these your children? Yes, look at them. Fengjiu went forward and picked up the children from the small bed. They are also your godson and godson. Looking at the 2 beautiful children, Mo Chan couldn't help but reach out and hold their small hands. He praised, they're so good-looking, just like you and your wife. Fengjiu smiled proudly. Of course, they will be more outstanding than us in the future. Ha ha ha! You 2 are already rare monsters. If they are more outstanding than you, how heaven-defying would that be? He chuckled, looked at the 2 children, and said, however, these 2 children are indeed dragons and phoenixes among men. They will not be simple in the future. He turned to look at Xianyuan Mo's. His gaze fell on his legs, and he said, I heard from Agio that your legs couldn't stand up after that battle. Perhaps it was because they were corroded by the black lotus of destruction for too long. Now that the ancient golden lotus is here, although she cannot use the power of the golden lotus to heal you, I can give it a try. Hearing this, Fengjiu frowned slightly. Your immortal body is not stable now. If you use the power of the golden lotus to heal him, won't you use up the immortal body that you worked so hard to condense? I know that it was not easy for you to condense an immortal body. Agio's power of the Green Lotus is gradually recovering. With her healing me, it will be fine if I recover slowly. As Xianyuan Mo spoke, he put one hand on his leg and said, I have been in a wheelchair for a long time. I'm not in a hurry. No matter, I was just about to come out to see you. After this time, I will focus on cultivating until I condense an immortal body. Seeing you today, I don't know when we will meet again in the future. He spoke warmly, then smiled at Fengjiu and said, moreover, your space is full of spiritual energy. It is a place that does not lose to the holy land of Buddhism. Cultivating there will be twice the result with half the effort. Hearing this, Xianyuan Mo's and Fengjiu looked at each other. Xianyuan Mo's asked, in your opinion, how long will it take to condense an immortal body? Is there anything else we can help you with? Mo Chan smiled warmly and said, I originally thought it would take at least 10 years. However, if I concentrate on cultivating in the space, I might be able to condense an immortal body in a few years. As he spoke, he slowly shook his head. Cultivating an immortal body can only be done by myself. Others can't help me. Then I'll have to trouble you with Moses' leg. As Fengjiu spoke, she looked at Xianyuan Mo's and said, let Mo Chun treat it. If you combine it with the power of the golden lotus, your leg might recover faster. Xianyuan Mo's looked at Mo Chan and said, then I will have to trouble you. Imo-chan smiled warmly and said, "We are so familiar with each other. There is no need to say this." He walked forward and stopped in front of Xianyuan-mos. He clenched his hands, and a golden ray of light flew out from his fingertips and landed on his knees. Xianyuan-mos felt a warm aura travel from his knees to his feet. This feeling was even stronger than Fengjiu's power of the Green Lotus. He could clearly feel a wave of power flowing through his legs. This power made his originally numb legs feel a wave of heat and numbness. Chapter 39-31. Fengjiu watched as Imo-chin's body gradually turned transparent and could not help but worry. Fortunately, he withdrew his hand after a while and smiled at the two of them. "I can only help you up to this point." Xianyuan-mos' feet moved slightly. He looked at him and said, "I can feel it now. I think I will be able to stand up very soon." As he spoke, he said solemnly, "Thank you. That's good." Imo-chan smiled warmly. He looked at the two children and said, "This is the first time I am meeting my adopted son and daughter, but I have nothing to give them." Fengjiu smiled and said, "It's okay. You can give them something when you have cultivated an immortal body." "Okay," he replied and said, "When we meet again in the future, I will give them a gift." He looked at the two of them and said, "Take care of yourselves. We will meet again in the future." "Okay," the two of them replied. Imo-chin's figure turned into a ray of golden light and returned to Fengjiu's space, attaching himself to the golden lotus. After Fengjiu placed the two children back on the small bed, he went to Xianyuan-mos and asked, "How is your leg?" "I can move." He moved slightly and said, "But it's still a little difficult to control." Hearing this, Fengjiu smiled happily. "It's good that you can move. If you can move, then you can move more in the next few days. You will be able to stand up in the next few days." Seeing her happy expression, Xianyuan-mos also smiled. Although he did not want Imo-chin to treat him because he did not want to owe him too much, seeing her so happy, he was relieved. What he owed was still owed. Since he already owed him so much, he would slowly repay him if he had the chance in the future. The next morning, after everything was prepared, they sat in the carriage and leisurely headed out of the city. A few days later, when Fengjiu and the others were walking on the mountain path, they faintly heard someone calling for help. Almost everyone's eyes turned to the monk walking by the side when they heard the cry for help. "Amipa." The monk put his hands together and seemed to be a little embarrassed. He lowered his eyes and said, "Saving a life is better than building a 7-story pagoda." As he spoke, his figure flashed in the direction of the call for help. Seeing this scene, everyone looked at each other helplessly and laughed at the same time. Du Fan shook his head and said with a smile, "It has only been a few days since we set off from the city, and this master has already saved people several times. He really has a merciful heart. This monk really likes to meddle in other people's business." "Isn't he a monk? Why do you like to meddle in other people's business?" Hui Lang kicked a stone and played with a green foxtail in his hand. He looked at the meddlesome monk with a puzzled expression. He's a monk and naturally has compassion in his heart. He can't be considered meddling in other people's business. It's just that his cultivation is different from ours, Chi Kong said. Although he felt helpless, he could understand. After all, Reverend Yi Jia was a Buddhist. When faced with such a situation, he would naturally not stand by and do nothing. However, even he had to admit that he was meddling a little too much. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.